Hi, Relief Society ladies. My mom and Sandy wanted me to make a little video for you guys for this nutrition class. So many of you may know that's part of what I'm studying at BYU. My major is exercise and wellness, and so I've taken a lot of nutrition courses with my major. So I've had the opportunity to study nutrition and wellness and exercise for the last 3 years at BYU, and it's something I really love. Not only did my parents raise me in a home with lots of great food and love of cooking, but now I get to study it as well. And so it's really fun for me. So there are just a couple of things that I wanted to share with you guys today that I've learned that I think are super important for everyone to know just about nutrition and about health. First, I'll start off with explaining a little bit of the science behind eating well, just some basics. So a lot of people know about DNA and that it builds who you are and what you look like and everything about you. But there's another factor that plays with DNA that a lot of people don't know about. So there's your DNA and your actual genes and the sequences and how they're put together. And there's something else called gene expression that happens along the way. So after your DNA is created, it's transformed and turned into proteins, which create how you are and how you feel and how you act and everything about you physically. But during this gene expression, there are a lot of things that can change how those genes are expressed. Some genes may not be translated, or there's all these different factors that can happen in your body. And one of the things that can affect these is your nutrition, is how you eat. Just wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So your gene expression, what happens is the foods you eat can alter the way that your genes are expressed. So, like a lot of people, for example, my family has a high history of cancer, and so I could have the genes that I would later develop cancer later in life, but they may never be expressed. So I might just be lucky enough to where they never turn into cancer, or the possibility is that if I don't take care of myself and I don't eat healthy and I don't exercise, they could be expressed. Or if I do the opposite and I eat really healthy and I exercise and take care of my body, they're never expressed and I remain healthy and I don't ever get cancer. So that's kind of important, and that's a really big reason why doctors will recommend improving people's diets when they do have chronic diseases or other problems, because it can really affect that gene expression. And then the way your genes are expressed also affects your immune function. So like your immune system and how it works and how well it works is affected by what you eat as well. So for example, I have this really good friend at BYU who was born with a condition called neutropenia. So he has no neutrophils, which are white blood cells. And your white blood cells are your first attack defense for whenever you get sick or you have a virus. But he doesn't have any of these, and so he can get sick really, really easily. But for him, what he does is he exercises and eats really well so that he makes sure that he doesn't ever get sick. And so that's a kind of an important thing in his life, is his nutrition, to help keep him healthy. But it can affect us the same way, but obviously in a lesser degree. So how you eat also affects your immune function because of the gene expression. And obviously then your immune function affects the way you feel, and you probably noticed too as well, like when you eat healthier you feel better, so it affects how you feel as well. And something we talk about in a lot of my classes is the 3 major things that affect how you feel and how your body functions are your sleep, what you eat, and your physical activity. And so those are kind of the 3 key things. And sometimes a lot of people don't think about sleep or about food or what are the 3, but those are the top 3. So another thing I kind of wanted to speak about was it's been really interesting for me as I've studied research study after research study on dieting and losing weight or eating well and nutrition and like what's the best diet and should you have carbs or no carbs, like all these different diets that are out there. I remember thinking like, so being so lost in this field and being like, well, what's the best? What should I really do? How do I know what's most effective? Are there some that are more effective for me than for others? All those questions. But it's been really cool to learn about all of these as I've been doing and reading more of these studies. So the best thing that all of the studies show to do is to, rather than think of it as a diet, think of it as a healthy lifestyle change, and do it in a progressive way that is easy for you to do. So one, for example, that my professor always talks about is a lot of people have an all or nothing mentality when they start wanting to make healthy changes. And his example he always uses is, I'm never going to eat brownies ever again. And then if you do end up eating one brownie, you break down and you say, oh, my diet's gone to waste, and just completely give up on it. And it gets worse and it just goes downhill. And so he says, instead of having that all or nothing mentality, which is really easy to do, to just, after you do break down kind of like that or whatever, to just pick yourself back up again and say, it's okay, that happened, I'm moving on, tomorrow's a new day, I'm going to do better, all those things. But like we've also talked about a lot in a lot of my classes, and kind of along with the gospel things, is like all things in moderation. So he would never recommend don't ever eat brownies again, like enjoy those foods, but enjoy them less if you need to, if that's what you're trying to work on. So a lot of my friends and a lot of my roommates always tease me because I eat so well, because it's my major and I love how it makes me feel. But like everyone else, every once in a while, I will go to In-N-Out and get a burger and fries and a shake. Or sometimes I just don't feel like cooking, and so I have cereal or Jamba Juice for dinner, or just ice cream sometimes, and that's okay, because I only do it every once in a while, and I'm not doing it every day. So you don't want to take the pleasure and the enjoyment out of eating, because there are a lot of great foods that you love to eat, but the key thing is how often you're eating them. So a lot of there's a USD recommendation that's been approved by tons of scientists, diet-wise, and just for overall general health. So you should be eating lots of fruits and vegetables of all different kinds and colors, and making at least half of your grains whole grains, and then another new thing that they've just come out with the best research for is making half of your plate fruits and vegetables, which is a really great thing because those obviously have the most nutrients for you. So those are just some basic recommendations, and you can find those online at, I believe it's myplate.gov, for more recommendations about that. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about that I've learned a ton about, which I think will be super helpful for my future, is raising children with a healthy view of food, and then helping them whenever they hit roadblocks, like if they become really picky eaters, or they won't eat at dinner with you, or they refuse to eat something you make. We studied this for a good couple months in one of my classes, and I thought how useful it is, and how so many moms wish they knew this because they don't know what to do when their kids aren't eating how they should. So there's a really great website that we've studied. This woman did all this research. Her name is Ellyn Satter. It's Ellyn Satter, Satter. And if you just search her name, and there's a whole website that goes into detail for everything you would need to know about feeding a child and raising them with a healthy view on food. So one thing that they really started emphasizing in the healthcare and in nutrition is this idea of health at every size, that not everyone needs to lose weight, but the most important thing is their health, and all these other risk factors like high blood pressure or risk for disease, or just all these different things, cholesterol levels. And I've read a bunch of studies, especially recently, that have shown like 50 to 60% of people who would be considered overweight or obese are actually metabolically healthy. So they don't have high blood pressure or any of those risk factors or any problems. So they don't actually need to lose weight if they don't want to. And so this whole health at every size thing is more focused on health rather than your size. And the same can be said for children. I was actually we just had a presentation where a woman came into my class specifically to speak about childhood obesity. And she works with children who are overweight and helps them with different things. But something really interesting she said to me and to the class was that they hardly ever recommend children to lose weight because they're growing and they're so young that things will eventually get better. And so they would only worry about a child's weight and worry about decreasing it if they are considered in the obese percentile, which is 95 and above, or if they are older, between ages 12 and 18, and they're in the overweight category, and they also have at least 2 risk factors, those being high blood pressure, high cholesterol, different things like that. So generally, if you're worried about your child's weight, the chances are that they don't actually need to decrease it, but they just need to maintain their weight or slow the rate of their gain. And so that's kind of interesting for me to learn, and so something to kind of keep in mind too. So one thing that she also talked about was physical activity in children. So she said that children responded better to, rather than saying you need to go out and be physically active, they responded better to saying you can't be sedentary for more than 2 hours a day. And it became like a challenge to the children, and they would just get up and play because they knew that there was this challenge of them they can't be sitting down for longer than 2 hours a day. And so it just worked better. And so that was kind of an awesome thing to keep in mind if you're trying to improve your child's physical activity levels. And then something really awesome that we talked about with the whole Ellen Satter's website is picky eaters. A lot of kids growing up are super picky eaters. My siblings were when they were younger. I probably was, I don't remember. But a great way to help kids overcome this is to introduce a bunch of different foods into their diet, but do it one at a time and try it in a lot of different ways. So trying broccoli in different ways, in soups, steamed, baked with potatoes and cheese, kind of however you can imagine. And that might increase their ability of liking it, or their chances of liking it, I guess. But the key thing they showed was if your children are old enough to get them involved in the cooking process of dinner, and how when they help make something, they're much more inclined to eat it, even if it's something that they don't enjoy or they think they don't like. And then again, also parents setting a good attitude for the food. So not being picky yourself and showing them that it's enjoyable and that you like it is also really helpful. And then the last thing I wanted to speak a little bit about was also along the lines with children and food. Some studies showed that the 3 key things that play into a child's health and their weight and what they eat are their nutrition, their behavior or physical activity, and their environment. So what they're exposed to at home and what they're exposed to at school or wherever else they may be. And we specifically talked about things they're exposed to at home, and it was super interesting to see what these studies have shown. So studies have shown that children's negative outlook on food, or like having an unhealthy relationship with food, which increases their weight or the risk for obesity. These are the 4 key factors, is when parents restrict highly palatable foods. So telling them that they can't eat any of this junk food, and having a really tight restriction on it, because when they are away from the home and those foods are present elsewhere, like at school or at a friend's house or something, they'll overconsume them because they haven't learned how to eat healthy on their own. And so something that was really interesting, an example of this, was when I was nannying over the summer for my little cousins. My aunt and uncle would say that their kids, instead of differentiating between this is a healthy food, this is a bad food, just say when they wanted a snack that they had to choose a food that grows first, that being like a fruit or vegetable, and then after they ate something like that, they could eat one of these palatable foods, but knowing there's a balance and not just eating a ton of candy. So helping your children understand that balance and helping them find that. The next factor that increased this risk was consumption of food away from the home. So the number of meals you eat outside of the home. So increasing meals at home with your family helps your children with this. And then the third aspect was parents' dietary disinhibition or restraint. So the more that you are trying to maintain a diet, or you're restraining yourself, or even the opposite, if you just don't care and you're eating however you want, your children will see that and they will almost do the same, and they'll have that will be a negative outcome on them. And then the fourth thing is if there's a lack of parental support or an overpossessiveness. So if you are too overbearing about their weight and about their health and about what they eat, that can be a negative. Or if you're just like, do whatever you want, like, there aren't some set rules, or at least they know, what's good for them, those can both be negative. So helping them understand what's healthy and having that balance with food in their life. And then there were 4 key things that helped improve this risk that were super interesting and really cool, and are usually found in a lot of homes, which I think is great. And so improving these can help your child. The first is family cohesion. So the better your family works together and the better that they feel a part of this cohesive family, the more support they feel and the better relationship they have with food and with their health. The next is family expressiveness. So feeling like they can express to you or to whoever else in the family how they're feeling about themselves and about how they feel and about how they eat or whatever. The third is parental support. So just being supportive of them and making sure that they feel loved no matter how they look, what their size. And most parents are really good at doing this, but that's some of the key things. And then the last, which was super fascinating to me, was cognitive stimulation at home, which means like reading with your children or helping them with their homework. Like the more of that there is at home, there's a really great correlation with their health and with how they feel and how they perform. So those are all just super interesting to me. Those are kind of the main things I wanted to speak about. I've loved studying nutrition at BYU, and so if any of you guys have any further questions or want to talk to me more about any of these, or are interested in some of the studies, just let me know. You can talk to me on Facebook, or you can ask my mom for my phone number. But I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy the rest of this class.